Rev up your engines!
What do you think about electric cars? Oh, they're cheaper to maintain. No, they aren't. Here's 3 electric cars that have over $10,000 in maintenance repairs. Now, number 1, no surprise, is a Tesla Model S. Now, over a period of 5 years, the estimated cost of ownership is $69,501 to own it for 5 years. The repairs you have to do, tires, because they wear out faster. And they still have maintenance. They have a cooling system, right? The loss of value of the car, $69,000 over 5 years. And what's number 2? Another Tesla. Tesla Model X. They're expensive ones, right? Now, not as bad as the $69,000 Model S, but still, they say it's going to be $29,000. The Model X's have things like the middle row seat spray, which costs $5,300 to fix. Oh, $5,300 to fix seats. Hey, they got you by the short and curlies there, right? The center touchscreens often go bad, and that's $3,400. And number 3 is the Porsche Taycan. Well, who wouldn't expect a Porsche to be expensive, though? But it's an electric car now. It's not the gasoline car. Over 5 years, the total cost of ownership of that baby, $112,296. Depreciation value, what it costs to put tires on, what it costs to take care of it. People think that electric cars are cheap. No, they aren't. It's a total fantasy that people are throwing out there, and then you find out, gee, it's really not that way. Hardly anybody knows how to work on them, so you got to take it to the dealer. And you know what dealers do? They screw you over. 5 years, $112,000 down the toilet. I could think of better things to do with my money. Damien says, Scotty, what's your thoughts on the Jaguar F-Pace SUV? They look nice. Yes, they look nice, but looks can be deceiving. Jaguar's endless money pits. Their SUVs are no different than their cars. It's a company that's made overpriced garbage for years. Jaguar was cutting edge in the 1930s and 40s. You know? It's been a long time since they've been cutting edge anything. And of course, ages ago, they got bought by the Indian company Tata. I think it was the revenge of the Indians against the British Empire by buying Jaguar Land Rover. They wanted to get even, right? I'm surprised they didn't buy Rolls-Royce, but the Germans did that. So I guess the Germans got their revenge from World War II. Don't buy one if you value your money, but if you want an art object, buy it and stick it in your backyard and look at it. Maybe put a bird feeder on top of it or something. WIGD Boat 3 says, Scotty, I got a Subaru Outback 2012 4-banger, 170,000 miles. The engine turns off when I brake hard if it's in drive, but I put it in neutral, it doesn't turn off, and it doesn't shake either. You got an automatic transmission, right? You slam on the brakes, and the engine stalls out with it in gear, but it doesn't do it in neutral. That means the transmission is dragging, and you either have a transmission problem or a torque converter problem. That's the part of the transmission that bolts to the engine and the transmission slips over that. Either way, you're going to have to pull the transmission off to probably see what it is. If it only happens once in a blue moon and it doesn't get any worse, I've seen people drive cars years that way. But if it's going to happen all the time, you're going to need some expensive work. Put it in a neutral, all that does is disconnect the engine from the transmission drag. So with it not dragging, it doesn't stall. You know you got a problem in the transmission or the torque converter that's connected to it. Israel says, good morning, Scotty. I want to put Bernie's ATS oil cleaner in a Honda Civic 02. Rev it up to 1,800 RPM for 20 minutes. It's going to mess anything up? No, it's not going to mess anything up. Just put a little fan in front of your car so it doesn't get hot. Now, normally Honda Civics, the cooling systems work fine. If you don't want to do that, watch the temperature gauge. As long as it stays in the middle, that's fine. But sometimes you got to add a little air because you're not driving it around. It's just sitting there. And then when you're done, change the oil and filter. You'll see a whole bunch of crud will come. Your oil will be dirty and a lot of the carbon will be dissolved inside it. It's great stuff. It's the best engine flush I've ever found. Quadrajet says, Scotty, any insights on a 2023 Prius Prime plug-in hybrid? Priuses, you want a hybrid car, that's probably the best one to get. And they're not ugly like they used to be. The new ones have more power. And you're talking about a plug-in. You can actually plug it in, drive it a certain amount of miles before you have to go to the engine. Now, if you want a vehicle like that, see what they're rated for on battery power only. And if you're happy with that, go right ahead. The original Priuses could go, you know, a mile maybe or two if you go 25 miles an hour on battery power alone. But they were hybrids. They weren't really plug-ins. That's a plug-in. See if your driving is acceptable to over that range. I got a customer with one. He takes a 10-mile trip to work. He just uses electricity all the time, and it's fine. If they drive a lot further, you might not find it to be so great. You could just get a regular one and not a plug-in. Jeff Smith says, Scotty, I got a 2013 Avalanche 190K. Transmission shifts fine, but I get a shudder around 35. Is it a torque converter or a worn clutch plate? What's a reasonable repair? It could be either. More often, it's a worn clutch plate. You got to take it all apart and rebuild it. It's a very expensive repair. Either way, you got to pull the transmission off. And if you're going through all the trouble of pulling off the transmission, you're going to rebuild the transmission. My advice is put at least a rebuilt torque converter in anyway. With 190,000 miles, I would not use torque converter over. They do wear out, especially in GM vehicles, so you might as well change the one and then rebuild it on the clutch. You're going to take it all off. You might as well just have a guy look at it and say, yeah, these clutches are worn. I can guarantee you, if that's the original Trendy with 190,000 miles, yeah, the clutch plates inside are going to be worn. You're lucky it's that far. Most of them go all 130, 129,000 miles on those things. Alfredo Garcia says, Scotty, what's the easiest way to replace all the engine mounts on a 2014 Honda Accord? Thanks. The easiest way? Pay a guy like me to do it. Then you don't have to do all that work. The problem is, if you're going to change them all, what you want to do is, the safest way is to use an engine cherry picker. So you pick up the engine and tranny, loosen the mounts, jack it up from the top, and then take them all off at once, because then you don't have to worry about bending it, because you're trying to get one on over here, but the other one is still on. Take them all off, do them all at once. Now, if you don't have a cherry picker, what you could do is you can put 2x4, maybe 6 inches long, 4 inches, whatever. Jack it from the bottom and take the mounts off to do it. But it's kind of a pain. You might bend something, especially if you put it under the oil pan, the engine. It's better to pick them up from the top using a cherry picker and a chain than it is to push it from the bottom. David Whiting says, is a 2012 Audi A4 with 149,000 miles a good first car? It's been well maintained. I'm well aware. Prepared to pay for the maintenance costs. Are you? Okay, Audi A4. It's a 2-liter engine. It's probably a turbo. That's the worst engine Audi ever made. I wouldn't touch one with a 10-foot pole. I've had so many customers buy those things with 100-something thousand miles on them, and then it just bankrupted them. They said it was the worst car I ever bought, and they never bought another one. The original guy, yeah, you can buy them new one. They'll last quite some time. You know, they're made in Germany. They're well made, just to an extent. But then all the plastic crap breaking, and the plastic stuff costs a fortune. I would not buy that, especially as a first car. You might give up on cars after that. Tyler Dennis says, Scotty, does it hurt to change oil brands between oil changes? Well, you know, it's not really going to hurt anything, but let's face the facts. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's my philosophy on things. I've been using like Castro oil my whole life, never had any engine problems, so I stick to it. Now, I don't know what additives they put in it, and nobody ever tells you the percentage and what they put in all the oil additives anyway. So why chance that one's different than the other? But, you know, you said in between oil changes, so you got an oil burner. So I mean, the engine's already worn, and the difference of putting in, you know, a quart of Pennzoil when you put in Valvoline for this really going to make any difference. They all are totally mixable once they're inside your engine. Harold Chubbuck says, Scotty, I got a 2004 F-150. I put a brand new motor in from Forecast, $9 grand. The truck's in good condition. Well, let me tell you, back in 04, they built them better than they build them today. If you keep fixing that, the tranny goes out, put another tranny in it. Why not? As long as it's not rusted. If you live in an area where they're not rusted, the frame isn't rotten, you did. But let's say a frame's all starting to rust away. No, you didn't do the right thing, because the frame will rust off, and then the truck's worth nothing because it'll all fall apart. But as long as the frame's good, just keep fixing it. Keep driving it around. They don't make them like they used to. Those old ones are solid made. And you put a new engine in it for $9 grand. If that's the first new engine, so that's a 20-year-old vehicle, hey, you get 20 years out of that. You can't complain for $9 grand, right? Nicholas Opengo says, I got an 08 Chevy Impala, says reduced engine power. Okay, the reduced engine power warning light comes on when there's a problem somewhere in the car. It could be a zillion things. It's just telling you there's a relatively serious problem. Now, you got to get a mechanic like me to hook up a scan tool and analyze the data and any other trouble codes that have come on. Could be a billion things. Could be you just need spark plugs. Could be you need a new transmission. There's so many things that can go wrong. You need a good scan tool. Now, if you want to learn about cars, watch my videos, get yourself a scan tool. You might find you like it. You might find it's fun. I started working on cars because I was interested in machinery. And I didn't have any training whatsoever. I learned from my grandfather, watched, learned, read, and hey, I made a living out of it, a good living too, so maybe I'll become a mechanic. Who knows? Anthony Paris says, Scotty, my sister's brake randomly went out. I checked for leaks around each wheel, found nothing, so I changed the master cylinder, bled it, and all in the brake still engaged at the very bottom. You made a good guess, because if you don't see leaks anywhere, right, the master cylinder can leak inside itself, like a heart murmur in a person. You won't see it leaking because it's all internal. Your heart can leak inside itself, and it's not squirting out, so, you know, same thing. The master cylinder could leak inside itself. If it's exactly the same as it was before, well then I would assume, no, it wasn't the master cylinder, unless you didn't get the air out of the system. Sometimes it's very hard to bleed the air out of the system. Try this. Pump it 3 times. And if you pump it 3 times and it stays hard, you got air in the system. You got to get the air out of the system. Now, let's say there was nothing wrong with the master cylinder. You replaced it correctly, and it's still doing the same thing. Anti-lock brake system. If it's starting to go out, it can make it go to the floor. The solenoid's inside, instead of being closed, could stay open, and it will sink more. Could easily be a problem in your ABS system. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.